My glasses!
Ring, 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 hello, derps and herbs and simps and virgins.
Derps and herbs.
And welcome
So
back to
disrespectful.
Krown's magical, very sexy, extremely seductive, magical internet money cave.
Well, welcome back to the Krown Crypto channel. Wishing you a happy and healthy start to this nice Monday morning over here as we get started for a new week of new opportunities, a new opportunity to get wrecked, to get absolutely fucking wrecked, as we do have several major events actually to be aware of this week specifically. Of course, the FOMC meeting going to be, of course, on Wednesday, and then we also do have, I think, the new sort of meme within this market, which probably does actually matter. Is the EU going to ban proof of work or crypto or whatever it might be, of which we've seen this many a time. However, markets will react, obviously, and the general markets, the traditional markets, are showing some pretty obvious things right now, which is a little bit more concerning, I would say. Anyways, with that in mind, who knows how long this takes to play out? Probably a long time. I am starting to get a lot of similar vibes to past prior markets, and we'll be going over a few of those situations, also following up on the short-term time frame analysis as well. And then the big signal that I'm kind of waiting for as soon as actually Wednesday, that is, which does coincide with that FOMC meeting. And well, that would be rather clarifying if we do get that signal met, obviously, which we spoke about briefly yesterday. Anyways, with that in mind, I want to say welcome to everyone in here. We got 700 people watching, which is actually kind of insane. We're trending up right now. What the fuck? We're trending up, and Bitcoin's been absolutely boring as all hell. The daylight savings time has happened, so I would expect even less people are tuning in right now. But hey, fair enough, man. I actually wanted to ask the community today, and perhaps I'll post a poll maybe on Twitter or maybe here on YouTube. I was considering maybe moving the live streams to a more American friendly time, perhaps around like 3 or 4 my time, which would be, I suppose, like 8 or 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're over there in New York, it would be like 8 or 9 a.m. Just curious, what people would think about that, as it might actually work a little bit better with my schedule going on right now. Anyway, see 740 people in the house right now, 263 likes on the video as well. We're trending up, man. That's good. That's very, very nice, and massive thank you for that. And I need a full sip of coffee today because, man, I am there's something weird. There's something weird about the sun coming up so goddamn early right now that it is. I see a lot of no's. I see some yeses. I see a lot of no's, though. Okay, maybe it stays around this time. I was actually even more curious to ask, what if I actually moved it an hour from now? So an hour up, meaning that an hour later from now, not earlier. I don't think I could do any earlier because, man, it's already starting at 8 a.m. and I expect that most people are just waking up at that time anyways, as I am as well. American hour gang, man. Yeah. Okay, so most people know. I think it's pretty damn, that is about you work for us, sir. Hey, man, I'm just part of this community just like anyone else, man. That's the way that I look at it. And honestly, my whole days recently have been more or less open, so I was kind of considering changing some things around. But yeah, it looks like no is the resounding response. I'm going to take a few more sips of this coffee. We'll get into the content of today. Probably should also let you know that we have a sale going on because it's the 4-year anniversary of this place. It's actually the 4-year anniversary of this place. What the actual fuck, man? What the actual hell? I can't believe that it's actually been this long. I can't believe it's actually been this long. 4 fucking years, man. 4 years. It's insane. This channel basically started off on a whim, and then I couldn't stop it. I just had too much fun with it. So this has been certainly the highlight of my adult life. I want to say massive thank you for everyone kind of being a part of this. And again, it's like I don't have the proper words to express my gratitude for something like this, just because it's like, how do you? I don't even understand the totality of this place to begin with. And for what it's worth, man, it's certainly the highlight of my life, and I hope that it's been providing some value and something of value in your own life as well. And massive thank you for being a part of this because it has been absolutely fucking incredible, man. What's up, Philson? I see you over there, man. Sean Waller, Jack Frost. Who else do we have? Gurney L. What's up, brother? Rocky G, another lovely moderator, and I think we even got Nikki Page in here too. Jesus Canto. What's up, brother? I see a lot of familiar faces, man. Good times, good fucking times, man. Anyways, I want to take a few more sips of this. I'll wait for a few more people to get in here, and then we'll get into the actual analysis because, as usual, on Monday, things are typically actually slow, working off the same chart over here anyway. So just want to make sure that everything's kind of nice and solidified on my own screen. And yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate that, brother. Very much appreciate that. It's a good hair day. As soon as I start pulling back my hair, it's like every day is okay. Okay, so I want to start off with short-term time frames right here. We'll briefly go over the long-term right here. Momentum over here, yes, and then I do want to touch on traditional markets as well. Yeah, a couple of very obvious things going on here too. So with that in mind, I think we'll start it off with Bitcoin. Just because this one's been playing very, very technically here, been requiring a bit of patience, but ultimately the blue boxes of peace and prosperity have been providing the edge going onwards and forwards here. This one not needed, at least for right now, just not that relevant. As you can see, obviously, I want to take a few more sips of this. Man, I am actually massively behind on my coffee intake for this morning. Oh, well, fair enough. Yeah, I couldn't get much slower the last few days. Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. This is very similar, very, very similar actually to 2018 around the end of the year there. In fact, you'll even notice that price action on the lower term timeframes right here is actually rather similar to that as well. So put this chart in your mind's eye right now. I'm going to bring you over to the same area on 2018. It's just something that I was looking at. Of course, I'm not a big fan of fractals. Obviously, I do typically kind of ignore them, but it is rather interesting to see this same very, very similar price action going on over here. You do have this inverted head and shoulders. This is on a daily, by the way, so obviously massively different time frames. So you would expect a smaller response in the short term over here, but you have this inverted head and shoulders right here, right? Nice big move to the upside. Okay, beautiful. We get the same thing over here. Move to the upside. Massively catastrophic fall back down, not on a lower low, however. That would be the one saving grace here. However, it's the same thing over here, right? Same thing over here. Next rally fails as well, and this one actually stifled at, I believe, the 618. Yeah, just below the 618, as was this one, right? Which we do have. Actually, though, this is not relevant for this time frame, but yes, I was at the 618 as well. And then what happens after that? Well, about a few weeks of sideways. I wonder if people remember this over here. This was the Finex. Sorry, not the Finex, but the Tether debacle, where Tether. They had some sort of litigation come out against them, or some sort of news. You know how like Tether's always been kind of a part of the news cycle. Basically, ever since I've started watching this whole market, and there's a big pump up right here on Finex. It was significantly more than that, actually. If we can bring it up right here, I remember this day. Yeah, there's a lot of impaled bullish bungholes on this one, right? On this major wick to the upside. A day where, remember, Bitcoin was trading at $6,000 during that day, and it went up, I think, like 30%, and was immediately shot back down, or actually more like about 25%. Spend another couple of weeks going sideways, and then the ultimate dooms drop. But very similar price action thus far. So, at the end of the day, what would actually invalidate that as a potential scenario? It's the same thing as always, right? It's the same thing as always, and that's why price action does matter most. But getting back above that last, especially lower high right here at 42,500 would obviously invalidate that. And then the big one would be, of course, $45,000 right here. But I thought that was, somewhat interesting, especially on a slower day like today. As I chug along a little bit more of this coffee right here. Man, I still got a lot more too. I think I'll just sip on it a little bit more, and then we'll get into it. But before we do that, I can just kind of peruse around the data over here as well. Again, Dixie opening up strong. I do think that this still has one more grind up to the upside before a little bit of a pullback. But pullback, again, not the same thing as reversal. Long term, this is very, very bullish. This is the monthly. This is the quarterly. We haven't really spoken too much about the quarterly. Except for like when it was relevant, which was of course coming into the end of 2021. And well, I'm still pretty fucking bullish on this one, man. I do expect that this one does head well above $100 in the coming like year to 2 years. Obviously, this is quarterly, going to take a long time, but I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing actually decently above $100, probably into 2023, I'd imagine. Anyways, I see a lot of comments going on right here. I have a few more sippy sips, and then I think it's time to get into some actual analysis. I don't want to actually include the fractal bullshit on the actual analysis video, simply because, well, I don't really think it matters that much, to be honest with you. Those things, they come and go all the time, and people are always looking for fucking fractals, and how many times are they actually right? Very, very rarely. Is kind of my interpretation of that. Yes, price action is fractal, but when you're comparing things from in completely different market cycles and completely different years as well, it becomes very, very difficult to kind of make that analysis. And most importantly, the price action analysis is gonna be more relevant anyways, right? It's gonna be more relevant anyways, but it can be a bit of a guide. But then again, it's like, we already kind of have that from looking at our current stature right here to begin with. All right, here we go. Nikki Page has been here long enough to where she can even answer the questions for me. This is beautiful, Nikki. You can ask about IMX at the end. I doubt it's going to have a weekly because it hasn't been around very long. It's like you've read my fucking mind, Nikki. It's like you've read my fucking mind. Yes, indeed, man. That's, or ma'am. That's actually the problem with most altcoins. They just haven't been around for too long. It's like, why? You can't be looking at higher term time frames on something that's been around for, less than a year, for the love of God. You've done goofed and bared on Bitcoin's price. I bear it all over it. Well, at the end of the day, man, you have to remember that we are traders here, so we shouldn't really care whether things go up nor down. We should care about trading opportunities, of which I expect there's going to be a lot. Not actually today. I think today's going to be another slow day, as will Tuesday as well. I think at earliest we'll see something Wednesday, and realistically, I don't think that we're looking at any major moves until probably end of month here, the last week of the month actually. All right, cool. So there's your clickbait title today. Major emergency. We got the same shit going on. Sideways as fuck, right? Okay, I think we're ready to rock and roll now. Okay, here we have Bitcoin starting off with a lower term time frame, falling up on the last few days of analysis. It's been more or less the same thing, of which Bitcoin coming back down to the 382 Fibonacci retracement right here at 38,500 after the rejection at the 0.5. And we actually did see a slight closure below there, which was our validation for a move down to the blue box territory right here, which I do think can come maybe a little bit lower towards 37 even, but ultimately a bounce area nonetheless. If you are on the lower term timeframes, the analysis is more or less unchanged here. Essentially, as long as Bitcoin's below $40,000, not anything massively new to be speaking about, even for a short and medium term time frame. However, above there, I do still look for the same thing, up to about 41,200 to 41,500 as my brain breaks. But ultimately, right now, that's not too relevant as Bitcoin does play out the move a little bit slightly lower. So let's now go into our other lower term time frame momentum oscillators and see, if this one is going to break here, is this a likely break? As I would be looking at $37,000 as a major pivot on price action, not just for a 4-hour time frame like this, but actually most importantly a daily, as this does have major implications more long term. If Bitcoin does close below the $37,000 region, I do look at that as a major indication that we're going to see much lower. That is kind of the major balancing point, the major pivot on price action that I look for the downside right now. Just like $44,500 to the upside is a major pivot to the upside. Now, obviously, that's just not too relevant for current price action because we're about $6,000 away from that, which is quite the stretch right here. So with that in mind, let's go down here into the lower term time frame stochastic momentum and see if things are starting to turn around Bitcoin. As always, on a Monday, I will be using CME for this analysis. We'll start off with the short term time frames right here, of which we do see 4-hour stochastic momentum is going to be pointed to the upside as long as Bitcoin's closing above 38,150. Currently, we have about 3 hours, 45 minutes, and 21 seconds left to go until closure. What's interesting to me is that on today's Monday, contrary to most Mondays, we actually do see that CME and spot price action are in the same posturing here. And what is interesting about this is that we actually do have a nice little trend line coming in from the last few lows going into the 5th of March. So were these major lows? Not necessarily major lows, but did precipitate some decent-ish bounces, if you will. And we will see that once again cross the upside and reject the bearish control zone with any sort of a closure on the next one at above 38,150. Let's say that's coming in on spot at an hour and 34 minutes and 45 seconds to be exact. What's also very interesting about this is that this is within the context of very, very low volatility. So if we do see volatility expansion, specifically, I really want to see this on BBWP just because the BBWP I think is a little more obvious right here. As we do see it not just come down all the way to about 0 percentile, but if we do see it maintain a positive slope and also remain above the moving average on this, I'd be looking at that next indication, that next sort of shift in momentum as very likely, going to play out a short-term move to the upside, to the top side of the short-term time frame resistance in this case, of which we're going to be looking at that. In this case, that's in your mid $39,000 region. So if that closure is maintained, that'd be good for the short-term timeframes. But again, short-term timeframes, not the same thing, a short-term timeframe bounce, not the same thing as a short-term timeframe reversal. That conversation is null and void. especially as long as Bitcoin's below 40,000 bucks. And I'd even go as far as saying that in the context of our current price action, it's better to err on the side of conservativeness, of cautiousness, of which I'd say, that really puts us right around about 42,500, the high of last week, essentially, on that failed rally attempt. So going back on over here, I do want to start to match this up with the other lower term timeframes, see if there's anything, any rhyme or reason on the lower term timeframes, of which we do see 3 hour is once again loading, of which, yes, it will turn back up. It will officially cross the upside above about 38,500, which we are currently about $100 above right now. Buy hourly also freshly up above 38,230, and hourly should also be up as well, I believe. Yes, indeed it is, above 38,000 bucks. So all kind of building upon the lower term timeframes. So what does it essentially make me consider? Very likely a bounce, a little bit more of a short-term continuation of that bounce into intraday here, but ultimately, these are very, very small margins. When we go over into the medium and higher term timeframes, well, relative to those lower term timeframes, the picture becomes a little bit more nasty, I would say. We do see 12-hour stochastic momentum is still playing out a downside move here. But here's the thing. This is downside momentum below 40,700 within the context of declining volatility, right? So we're seeing a contraction phase alongside downside momentum. So I am looking at this as a corrective move. So short-term timeframes very likely continue the bounce. Medium-term timeframes, are generally within a corrective move here, which in this case probably does hold the current low. I don't think that Bitcoin's breaking down today, for example, even if you are very, very bearish. Going over here to the daily, we do see that daily stochastic momentum will actually shift on to the upside for the first time basically since late February. With any sort of a closure above 38,200. So I do think that bounce could bleed into the higher term timeframes, but again, that's going to be mediated very specifically by the $40,000 level. Until then, I'll just be looking for a short-term, upside move, maybe somewhere around about 39.5. Kind of the same thing as last week, right? Where we had that same goddamn trade like 3, 4, or maybe even 5 days in a row. It was kind of like becoming a guilty pleasure. But in this case, very likely a short-term continuation of the bounce. Does the bounce get above $40,000 or not? That is the real question. If it does, I do extend targets decently, I suppose, at least another $1,000 to $1,500 up around the 618 Fibonacci retracement right here. And then that's kind of the big one for me as far as judging if this reversal has any power to it. Above there, I do look for a full-on move back up to the top side of the range. That's $44,500. And that very likely does set up for a major event later this month. So the big signal that I'm kind of awaiting upon is the 5-day right here. And this is what I'm going to be placing a lot of the weight of my analysis on going forwards for especially the midpoint of this week, and then very likely looking for resolution at the end of this month. And that would be the 5-day BBWP, of which we do see it coming down to historically very, very low levels right here. I'm going to bring out the same chart as yesterday because I do think that it's very relevant. And we have seen this same area hit 1, 2, 3, 4, well, technically 5, but 4 prior times in the past year here. And where is my damn thing? There we go. There's the chart that we were working off of. And all of these regions that were hit on very, very low volatility did produce a rather big move, both the upside and the downside. So these same regions are all represented by the green vertical bars. So I'm going to get rid of this for right now. And of course, volatility is direction neutral, right? So in this case, we see the first move playing down about 50%. The next move was an upside move, obviously. And from that area to the next major high, before a little bit of a short-term correction, was about a 44% move. So these are rather comparable to each other. Then we have the same one over here going to the upside, about 45-46% move to the upside. And then of course, this one to the downside, of which we played out about a 42-ish% move. So these are very, very similar to each other. And guess what? We've once again hit these same regions right here on 5-day BBWP. Thus far, still holding the lows. So I would say that until we do get until we get like a major bias on the resolution of this, which essentially just boils down to it in the way that I look at things, above 44.5 good or below $37,000 bad. I mean, this is within the the context of like bull goggles, I guess. Realistically shouldn't really care, but ultimately, what we can do to kind of get a bit more of a bias on the resolution of that likely, 40 to 50% style move, I'd be going over here to my 5-day stochastic momentum oscillator and judge that within the context of those past moves. So let me bring it out right here. Where was the chart that I was working off of yesterday? I think it was this one, right? Yeah, it was this one right here. So what I've done on this chart is I've actually highlighted with the vertical green bars all of those same areas on the 5-day BBWP. And then what you'll notice throughout these areas is that the 5-day stochastic momentum has actually gotten the move, perfectly in the past, basically meaning that when we see that the very low BBWP is met by, in this case, in May, a 5-day stochastic downside move and also losing the bullish control zone right here, well, that was obviously, a big bad move to the downside, obviously, right? Same thing to the upside in that next iteration off of July bear trap, right? We did see it not just cross the upside, but also work its way out of the bearish control zone right here. Same thing in October where the stochastic momentum was holding within the bullish control zone and turning up at the same time. That was your run from basically 40,000 to 65,000 or 69,000. Great number right there. And then same thing to the downside more recently in December when it officially lost the bullish control zone and was heading down at the same time. The reason why this is relevant and the reason why I'm putting a lot of weight on this is the reason why I'm putting a lot of weight on this is because it's what you just saw. But the reason why this is relevant and why I think it's something to really be keeping an eye on is that the next 5-day closure is coming in 2 days. So that would be Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And what do we see right here? Or is it going to be 8 p.m. now because daylight savings time? Well, whatever it is, the daily closure for Wednesday, essentially. If we do see the 5-day stochastic momentum once again turn to the upside, which will be had with any sort of a closure above 38,350, this would not only be turning up to the upside yet again, but it would also be rejecting or accepting getting out of the bearish control zone, most importantly, on very, very low volatility. So that would be a really good indication that Bitcoin likely does take the upside resolution. And if that does happen, not only would, short-term targets up to $44,500 to $45,000 be relevant, but above there, that's where Bitcoin really starts to initiate some more impressive targets, more long-term, of which one we would have, let me just see if I have it on this chart right here. One, we would have an ascending triangle, a reaccumulation formation, which does have a technical target upon validation all the way up to about $55,000 to $56,000, and it would naturally confirm a higher low on the weekly right here, and also naturally confirm a couple drives of hidden bullish evidence come off the lows right here. And by the way, this would also be a rejection of the RSI off of the bearish control zone as well, which would just be, further confluencing the 5-day stochastic momentum, but ultimately, that would have a technical target into the basically, low $50,000 territory as well. And if that were to happen, it would bleed on into the monthly as well, of which the monthly would also have hidden bullish evidence. Right now, I do not consider this relevant because I see it a lot on Twitter is the reason why I'm kind of calling it out right now. But the problem is until you actually do confirm this as a local low, you cannot compare this low with this price action right here because they're not of the same, accord. Whenever you're talking about divergences, it must be low versus low or high versus high. There is no in between. There is no ever conversation to be had against that. That is the way that it is, it is designed. And the RSI, it just, as understanding the actual fucking indicator itself only works off of closures to begin with. So when you are front running a closure, in this case, which I would be doing actually, then I need to, it needs to be very, very, strong or, have to be very confident in it. Yes. At which case if Bitcoin were to trade back above basically last month's high or this month's high, about that $45,000 region, yeah, I'd say that probably does it. And you'd have hidden bullish evidence on monthly RSI. And that wouldn't just have targets up to 56-ish thousand. That'd very likely be testing around $60,000 again, ultimately. So that's kind of what's at stake for the Bullahs. Obviously, the Bears, we've been going over the bearish case a million goddamn times over here. The biggest one for me is, of course, the monthly chart right here, of which we, boils down to this. Monthly MACD crossing the downside. Every time that's actually happened, it's always been the same result. In fact, coming down to the green 55 exponential moving average. Now, I like to mediate that with a couple of other indicators for added timing of that, of which we have the PMAR getting below the moving average. And then most importantly for timing is Bitcoin losing that white 20 simple on the monthly. And that typically does precipitate the next major move to the downside, which does, historically speaking, come all the way down to the green 55. We have 3 iterations of this in the past, not a whole hell of a lot, but 3 times does make a trend. So it's just good enough as far as I look at things. And in this case right here, where's the 55 on the monthly? That's just below $24,000. So I still think that that's, worst case scenario to the downside. I forgot to go over this as well. My bad on this one, but basically we should have measured out what would about a 45% 1% move to the upside or downside from our current area right here look like, just so that we can add some confluence onto these targets. But basically 45% to the upside. Oh, guess what? That's $56,000, which was the technical target on an upside resolution. To the downside, from this area would be actually all the way down at around 21-ish, about $22,000. Obviously very, very close to the 55 right here. I do think that we could if the downside resolution does happen, I'm looking for a wick down around there and then probably close around the 55 and spend some time oscillating around there. But ultimately, the earliest that I'd front run an upside signal on that, again, above $44,500. The downside, again, below about $37,000 on a daily closure. I do think that the downside does start to gain a lot more traction. And while there will be bounces along the way, maybe even some very big bounces along the way, ultimately I'd be looking for, first move down somewhere around 34.5, probably bounce there. Bounce probably fails, depending upon how high it gets, I imagine. Then comes down to the macro cycle, or sorry, not the macro cycle, but the macro range area, which is of course this area right here between about 29.5 and 30,005, and then very likely another big bounce right there, and then probably the big bad dooms drop down to that final target if that is going to be the way to be looking for. But to add maybe a little bit onto this, I do want to bring you over here to Dixie, of course the dollar index. Again, this is the dollar's value relative to a basket of other fiat currencies, although while that's not a direct relationship to asset prices, it does seem to have a decent enough correlation to where I want to be aware of it. And I'm massively bullish on all higher term timeframes for this, as we have been basically since the major reversal was confirmed back here in ending Q3 of 2021. We're starting to hit our first macro targets around the $100 region, of which we got up all the way to 99.4 just yet. And ultimately, I am looking for a short-term pullback relatively soon, but short-term pullback, again, not the same thing as a macro reversal here. I am looking for this one to continue upwards and onwards, probably around end of year, maybe into 2023 as well. This is a long-term chart, obviously, and that would be not the most bullish for Bitcoin, I imagine, or at least historically speaking. Also looking at traditional markets here as well. Bad, maybe a bit of a short-term bounce as markets open up, but ultimately, just like Bitcoin below $45,000, it's hard to be, it's hard to look at that as like a major resolution or doing anything of particular interest. This one below, especially $14,000, I'd say the same thing essentially. So, short-term bounces can come up very easily to like 13.5, 13.6, but not the best right there, not the best. So ultimately, I do remain a little bit cautious here, obviously. Anyways, going back on over here and referencing some of the some of the data on the Krown application, should let you know, of course, for the people watching this video a little bit later, we got our 4-year anniversary sale going on right now. And then also we do have the global open interest coming down somewhat to those historically very relevant regions, of which I've kind of postulated that at around 10 billion. We're on the hourly data feed, we're about 10.68. On the daily, we're about 10.55. But ultimately, we have seen that region kind of produce a lot of bounces actually in the past 3-4 months now. So I have set an alert right there. We haven't gotten down exactly there just yet, but if we do start to come down between about 10 and 9, I do look at that coinciding with one of those major areas on price action as likely a bit of a bounce region. What do we see on funding rates? Slightly negative. Again, really grasping at straws here, but yeah, on the hourly data feed, it is negative 0.01%. So it has been consistently negative over the past, I'd say, week or so. But ultimately, these are very, 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 very small numbers, and you do expect it to be negative during general downtrends, obviously. So, I don't really feel comfortable or confident saying that, hey, that's immediately going to mean that Bitcoin bounces up to the fucking moon and beyond. No, obviously not. But for right now, Bitcoin more or less same thing on the short-term timeframes, and the higher-term timeframes starting to really formulate some of those more long-term signals. So for myself, and I imagine a lot of other people out there as well, the real skill or the real trick right now is kind of figure out the earliest point at which I would be front-running those major signals to play out that next 40 to 50% move, of which I think I've made my opinion on this rather clear. And for the most part, I mean, I'm just trading short-term timeframes anyway, so I actually don't really care, to be honest with you. But as far as, YouTube analysis goes, and ego, right? And ego, that is something that I do want to be a little bit more, aware of right now. Anyways, I think that's it for Bitcoin. Yeah, I think that's it for Bitcoin. Hopefully that was helpful. And there you go, sirs and zers. Sweet. Sean Waller says, good day, mate. Does your 5-day Bitcoin TA carry the same weight if you were to use it for NASDAQ? No. Why would it? They're different charts, sir. 5-day BBWP is nowhere near what we had on Bitcoin. No, man. No, these are different charts, different assets. And if anything, NASDAQ's probably setting up for a decent bounce here. But that bounce is likely to be a corrective bounce and probably fail. So how high does it get? Well, could actually go for quite a run, but ultimately corrective is the name of the game. Cool. I'm going to finish off this coffee. I see the most relevant question right now is for Elden Rings. Super Googly Elite says, I've just beaten Stormvale Castle. Congratulations, man. Can we have a look at HSI Daily Weekly? Yeah, man, I got you. What do you think of God? I thought Margit was actually was a really good first boss. Quite hard. Anyways, still bearish as fuck on this chart, man. Still bearish as fuck. Anyways, you're on a daily and weekly. I'm looking at a monthly and probably even a quarterly as well. But the question is, well, what are we looking at right there? Well, we've been very bearish on this chart for a long time. This one looks like continuation, as we said, was likely in the past month. And I think that this one probably has a little bit more to go to the downside before the next major bounce. I need to really be looking at a monthly and a quarterly to kind of gauge this one. And in this case, I am looking for a bounce soonish, but I do think it heads a little bit lower first, somewhere around about 19,000 even is where I'd be looking towards. If we go down to a daily, as you did request, it's just a fucking swan dive. It's the dying swan formation. We are hitting extremes here on daily BBWP, but I don't look at this as to go into like a little bit of a corrective move until the BBWP is below for like a few closures, that moving average right there. And at that point, where can it bounce up to? Maybe like shallow 21s, 21,000s that is. But for right now, I think you got maybe one more nosedive and then a bit of a bouncy bounce right there. Weekly, same thing, you're hitting extremes here on weekly BBWP, but this one's going to obviously take a while for the moving average to catch up and play out, probably a greater corrective move. So, short-term daily, maybe one more slight move to the downside, then probably a little bit of a short-term bouncy bounce, maybe into like the shallow 21s or so. Weekly says probably another like another drive after that to the downside, and then a corrective move. And then monthly says, don't expect a reversal anytime soon. As does the quarterly is just as nasty as it gets right here. We do see a drive of regular bearish divergence into the bearish control zone for the first time ever on the quarterly right here. On top of that, we see that quarterly BBWP has reached the lowest levels it ever has and is expanding off those levels. So this is, in my opinion, like the reversal, as we've been saying for a while now. There's going to be bounces along the way, but I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing over the next few years come down like to 15,000-ish, 14 to 15,000-ish. This like is the reversal is what it looks like to me, man. Pretty ugly, very, very ugly chart right there. All right, sweet. Let's see. We got Truco Productions next. Says, hey, Krown, could you take a look at Luna on the 4 on daily? Yes. Let's see where Luna's at right now. Luna's Tunas. By the way, going to be uploading or posting live my my video with Crypto Ed today, which I'm really excited about. He's just amazing, man. You got to check him out on Twitter. Just he just comes off as like one of the legitimate guys, and just really, really interesting, his sort of insight and analysis, and just one of the guys who's like not afraid to put out like an actual idea on the internet. And it's like, look, it either stands on its merit or it doesn't, but there's always a next trade. And that to me is, those kind of people I really want to be speaking with. So you'll be, or I'll be uploading that later today. Anyways, Luna, not bad here, actually, at least not yet. Still one of the better charts. Still wouldn't be surprised to see this one make new highs. In fact, I'm going to record a video on this one. And actually, let me just set up everything over here. Okay. Yeah, 5-day and weekly. Wow. Powerful Luna. Ooh. And we got some powerful burpees here too. Here we have Terra Luna, symbol LUNA versus the dollar. And we do have we have probably one of the strongest charts in cryptocurrency land right here. So this one did test pretty much all-time highs last week, as we did say was likely. Now playing out a pullback, which I believe we also said was likely as well. This pullback, rather technical, I do believe, as this one does come down. It first came down to the 618. Yeah, that's kind of what we were looking at last week. And then the short-term time frame, let's actually see where it came down to right here. Let's see. Yeah, right around the 382 in this case. Beautiful. Actually, that was the wrong style. I should have done it this way, but 618, on a bullish retracement. Anyways, I am looking for a short-term bounce to continue from this region. In this case, I do have an invalidation below about 85.5 bucks. But until then, I do look for this one to play another short-term upside move somewhere into the mid 90s, 95-ish, let's say. And then the real question is on the higher term timeframes here, as this one is certainly acting as one of the most strong assets in this market. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get rid, oh shit, that wasn't the one I want to get rid of, but we can do it like this. What I want to do here is I want to be taking the whole range, and I want to be plotting my targets if this one does get its actual breakout attempt, which will be confirmed with any sort of especially a weekly closure above about 100 bucks. On a daily, what would I be using? I'd be using about 102 and 35 cents in this case. If that does happen, I am actually looking for this one to play out some pretty big upside moves. I guess I already did it over here, so let's just use that one. Let me just get rid of this one. There we go. I'd be looking at a next target somewhere between about 115 and 123 or so. Very likely a pullback from there, and then I'd actually be looking much higher over time, somewhere around 160 to 160 to 169. In fact, all higher term time frame stochastic momentum oscillators are headed to the upside. We see weekly will be remaining with upside posturing as long as this one's closing above 58 bucks. So looking good. 5-day, same thing as well, 51.40 in this case, and we do see it playing off the same trend line test from the last 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 macro lows. It's going all the way back to January 2020 right here. So these are marked off in this, on that chart. Looking at it daily, this one is corrective for the short term. We'll be remaining with downside pressure as long as it's closing below 100 bucks. So short-term rallies, which I am looking for on a 4-hour time frame. I don't think that this is the one that's actually going to bust on through to the upside. That could take, maybe, it could take another few weeks. I don't know. I would really only declare it an upside breakout with a daily closure above 102 and 35 cents, or a weekly above about 100 bucks in this case. Until then, short-term probably tries another short-term upside move, but I would not. I don't think that one's actually going to be it, to be quite honest with you. As daily stochastic momentum won't turn up until you close above about 100 bucks. And what I do notice here is that you probably come down and play out a test somewhere along this trend line. What I'm seeing on the daily specifically is that you're seeing downside momentum, but this is alongside very contracted volatility. So again, I look at this as a corrective move first and foremost. That means, sideways and maybe a little bit lower. After a bit of a short-term try to the upside is somewhat likely, I suppose. But until this one essentially closes above those topside resolutions, I would not be, calling like major continuation to those targets. Do I think that this one maybe makes new all-time highs this month? Probably yes, but I do think it probably comes in like the next couple of weeks, not necessarily like today or tomorrow. In this case, we did this one had a really good monthly closure. Again, one of the best charts, among the best charts in cryptocurrency land. So ultimately, I am looking for this one a bit more sideways, and then probably around later this month tries for another upside move. I only invalidate bullishness on this one below. Let's pull up this again. I only invalidate bullishness on this one below about 70 bucks on a daily closure. Until then, short term tries for another short-term upside move. I don't think that one's necessarily going to be it. Probably plays a little bit more sideways after that, and maybe later this month tries another actual attempt towards new all-time highs. And until then, I think I will back off on this one, and hopefully that was helpful for Luna. Anyways, let's see. I think we have Mr. David next. Says, hey Krown, moving time to USA friendly would be lovely. Could you check out KDA on the daily, please? Sure, KDA. Man, I think I said something that was not so nice about this, about this asset. No, I didn't. No, I feel like I got some shit about this asset last week, but I'm wondering what it was from. Maybe not Trex, maybe Binance. I know that I have a chart on this one somewhere. Maybe CoinEx. Where is my chart on this one? This one is actually starting to lose its luster here, though. I do see a slew of lower highs, usually not the best sign. In this case right here, obviously just like Bitcoin, I wouldn't necessarily call a downside resolution until I see a full-on closure below, in this case, 540. But below there, I probably do look for big bad moves to the downside, somewhere around a little bit below $3, or somewhere around about $3. By the same token, I would call an upside resolution with any sort of a closure or even a trade back above. I'm guessing this is last week's high at 839 or so. At that point, I do look for a nice move back up to the top side of your daily range, which is right here. So that'd be around about 10 and a half bucks or so. Ultimately, though, What does the weekly look like? Not bad. I mean, not terrible right here. Let's see. You're on the daily. I do want to check out some of the other higher term time frames. Monthly is not going to be too helpful. Maybe a bi-weekly will have a little bit. No, not so much. 5 day, same thing as well. I mean, look, this one kind of in similar places, Bitcoin, in the more, in like the last month or so. Let's go over here. See what this one's looking like. Loading, still loading. Come on, baby, show me the momentums. Oh, that's right. I'm using the wrong chart. Here we go. Maybe we try this one. There we go. Yeah, 720 on the daily. Okay, interesting. Interesting, man. If I'm looking at this one in the lower term time frames, definitely don't like it. I'd be playing trend in this case, man. I would actually be, I'd have to be bearish on this chart as long as this one's above 11th of March's high. I do think the downside's a little more likely on this one, actually. That rejection that you saw last week kind of speaks for itself, but I would say that's fully confirmed below about, what is it? Did I say $5.50 earlier? Yeah, $5.50 or 540. Kind of one and the same in this case. Short term, I do think that it trades back down around there, actually, or at least somewhere down around about 575 to 580 or so. I wouldn't be calling any sort of an upside reversal with targets up to like 10.5 bucks, as long as you're below about just this high right here, man. 839 in this case. Let's see. Okay, scrolling through a few more of these as well. I see Mr. The Uncredibles. What's up, man? Did you get a haircut? No, I did not. I tied my hair, however. You look like a late model 70s vacation dad. I feel sexy today, man. Thank you for that. Kyle McDonald says, my duder, what's up, brother? Could you check out ZEC on the daily macro? Daily's not going to be a macro for ZEC. This is Zcash. Yeah, this one's been around for a while, so probably could use a weekly. I'd say that the macro is going to be represented by a weekly here. This is very interesting. I was expecting something much more shitty for ZDERP Cash, but actually had one of the better weeks last week. That is very interesting right there. Here's a problem though. What do you have going on? You do have, of course, if you're looking at the macro, if you're specifically asking about the macro, I'm going to go to the weekly in this case. Well, you do have macro lower highs in this case. Most, or I wouldn't say most things, but Bitcoin and some of the more strong charts do not have that just yet. So in this case, I actually would not say that this one is, it's actually quote unquote good until you do close back above at least that last high right there at about 240 or so. At that point, this is a macro reversal, and probably going to see this thing actually fly, not just to like 400 bucks, but probably much further from there over a long enough period of time. If we go over here to a daily, man, it's very difficult to be bullish on Zcash because it's such a loser more often than not. But I would say that this rally is not necessarily canceled until I do see a closure below about 139. At that point, I do look for this one to come back down about 120 to 125 region. Going back here to the weekly and 5 day. I think that you probably have at least another try to the upside, probably somewhere around about 180. But again, I'm not calling any macro reversals in this one if that's your specific question regarding the macro until you're back above about 240 or so. So short term, probably gets one more try to the upside. Personally speaking, I think that one gets stifled somewhere around about 175 to 180 or so. And then pray to Bula Jesus, I guess. Monthly ain't super bad right now, actually. Yeah, very interesting one right here. I wasn't expecting this at all because usually Zcash just down, just straight fucking down. I think you got one more try to the upside here, and then probably does pull back from there. Extremely bearish below about 100 bucks. Extremely bullish above about 240 bucks. Below the downside of resolution at about $95, $200. I do look for this one to go for a nice 50% move to the downside, somewhere down around about 50 bucks or so before the next potential major bounce. But for right now, give it a chance, I guess, and come back to it later, I suppose. Very interesting to see, however. Hey, thanks for that, Jesus. Appreciate that, man. Congrats on the strong 4 years, man. It's been crazy. Like it's actually really crazy to think about. Really need to spend more time on that, actually. Let's see. We got Mr. BK next. Says MRI versus wrapped Ethereum. Okay. I think we looked at this one last. Yeah, this Marshall Rogan Inu sounds like a fucking scam, man. I think it's probably ready to come down here now. Now look, this thing is way too new, obviously, to do like a real analysis on, even on like a daily, maybe even a 4 hour could maybe do it. I think you got at least another move back down to about 250 to 250 to 260,000 butyrols. Probably another short-term bounce there, but ultimately I do think that this one's going to find its path back down to, I think this is the low last week, 11th of November, probably somewhere back down around there, man. This is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is it's basically a fucking scam coin, right? I mean, it's named after Marshall Rogan Egan. So that's Joe Rogan's dog's name, that golden retriever, that cute little golden retriever that you see. I think someone just like made a token off that name or something, you know, for the notoriety, and you know, they pumped it up. I think I saw a video on this on like Spencer Cornelia's channel where like a bunch of UFC fighters were kind of promoting it, and they don't really seem to know what it actually is. They just like, you know, they just get paid to promote it, right? And so they give it a bit of a shout out. Because I remember one of the reporters asked the fighter himself during an interview, like, what is it? And he's like, I don't really know. I don't know. It's like, fair enough, you know, fair enough. But yeah, man, I think that this one's probably seen its highs for a while. I think it's probably seen its highs for a while. I'll be wrong on it. If you do see, you know, even another hourly move back above about 450,000 butyrols, I guess. But for right now, man, I think that you're getting ready for this one to drop off the face of the earth as you do confirm another drive of hidden bearish divergence right there. And we do see that volatility is about to tick up as well. So that's going to be volatility plus trend plus momentum in this case. I'm probably looking for this one to retest last week's lows. Probably have another short-term bounce there. Bounce probably fails long-term if I had to guess. The Wholesome Grail says, can you look at Algo USD on the daily and weekly? Hey man, all good, brother, all good. Yeah, we can do that. We haven't looked at this one in what seems like months now. This one used to be really, really popular and coming down, man, coming down hard. And I mean, you're back down around, you know, last major weekly lows in this case. Does it have another pity bounce within this region? I think likely it does off this 68, 69 cent region. But again, bounce is not the same thing as reversal here. There is nothing to be spoken about as reversal goes, as long as you're below about $1.20 in this case, or even I would even say $1. So short-term bouncy, yeah. Where can bounces come up to? I think 77 to maybe even 85 cents is okay. But again, not the same thing as a reversal call. I'm looking for this one to break down more long term. The only reason why I'm calling a bounce here is because you're testing around your last major lows coming in from May of last year. So this was your last summer lows, right? See what a 5-day looks like. Yeah, pretty fucking ugly, man. And you're about to go into a contraction phase right here after that expansion to the downside. Same thing on the weekly as well. So, you know, short-term-ish, you know, maybe the next couple of weeks, probably a bit more bouncy here, I suspect. But ultimately, I probably would be looking for this one to make some major moves to the downside in the coming months. To be honest with you, I mean, probably down around like 40 to 30 cents. Monthly, atrocious, just really, really awful right there. The only way that I change around my mind on the monthly is it's not anytime soon, so it's not even worth talking about. Yeah. Short-term time frames, like a 4-hour. Do we even have some regular bullish divergence here? No. It's kind of difficult one, man. But yeah, if it does catch a bounce, probably looking somewhere in like the mid 70s. I think best it does see upside is like mid 80s or so. After that, I'm generally looking for this one to trade sideways and down. Definitely one of the weaker charts that we've seen today, actually, and you just got a fresh silver cross to the downside. Typically going to bounce up into that, but if you see any sort of rejection, essentially below $1, that's probably the big one. Going to take some time, obviously, but you are asking about higher term time frames, naturally. Cool. All right, a dingo ate my satoshis. Hey man, hope you're having a great day as well. Can you compare Tether dominance and Bitcoin dominance on the daily and higher? When they pump together, Bitcoin usually dumps. I mean, I would think that even just looking at Tether dominance is probably enough for this analysis because, okay, Tether dominance is very interesting to me right here. I actually do think that this one's getting ready for a pullback, to be honest with you. And I do know, or at least I believe we've done this in the past. I do know that we've done this in the past where Tether dominance does typically play opposite of Bitcoin USD price action, not Bitcoin dominance. But in this case right here, I know I'm not like directly going after what she said. I just don't think that Bitcoin dominance is like relevant in that case. To be honest with you, I think it's a more direct correlation if you look at this versus Bitcoin price action. But or at least that's just what I've seen. But if anything, I'm actually looking for this to come down somewhere down around like maybe 370 to 390 or so. I would not say that I'm necessarily bearish on this or looking for like a MAC reversal here. No, I don't think so. Yeah, at least not yet. But I do think that you're setting up for a bit of a correction here. The reason why I say that is just, you're retesting around macro highs in this case, and probably going to pull back and try for a higher low. If it is going to end up being long-term bullish, somewhere around the 0.5 if I had to guess, which is about that 360-ish region. I would only call a potential MAC reversal below about 330 in this case. At that point, that would obviously be, likely very, very bullish for Bitcoin long-term. But let's just take this off for a second and compare it against Bitcoin. So let's do it like this, and we'll put Bitcoin on log scale here. And it has played opposite of Bitcoin pretty much throughout the whole history of the recorded data here. The only time where it did not was in 2020 after the Rona dump, all the way into essentially October 2020, which was basically before Bitcoin breaking that prior all-time high a couple of years ago. But other than that, it's always been pretty much opposite of it. So I actually would expect this one to come down here, which does correlate, with the Bitcoin bounce first. Question is, how far do we come down here? I do think I do think somewhere down just below like 4% is very likely, but that's kind of where you do expect your higher lows if this one is going to end up being bullish long term and continue with that trend. So I would still hesitate from calling like a major MAC reversal here just yet. I would only call a MAC reversal again below about 320, I think it was. Yeah, 330 is where I'd call a macro reversal in this case. So yeah, hopefully that was helpful, man. But yeah, going back to Bitcoin over here, it does provide a little bit of color on that. So a little bit more hopium in the books, I suppose. Anyways, Ian Gazard says, AVAX, please. Whoa, calm down. Pisa says, good morning, sir. What's up, man? How are you? I'm doing all right, man. Elsa's sighing in the background. She said, a very difficult morning this morning. Can you please look into... Stop whining. Oh my God. If you ever want, it's the best thing to tell your significant other, just stop whining. Elsa said maybe one of the funniest things I've ever seen her say ever to someone in the Discord like a week ago. Someone in the Discord was asking, why can't I be a mod? And he tagged her and she said, because you touch yourself at night. And I'm not sure if he got that it was like maybe kind of a joke, but he never asked again after that, which because you touch yourself at night, like, couldn't have been a better response. Stop whining. Can you look into XRP 1 and 4 hour? I can. It's only going to be very low term timeframes here, so I don't know how relevant this is. But short term timeframes like an hourly and a 4 hour, just ranging here, probably test the lows yet again. You might be a little more interested in a daily, of which I think the daily analysis on this one's a bit more lenient, if anything. You do have a range resolution basically above last week's high at about 84.5 cents, and that does have targets back up towards $1, maybe $1 plus. By the same token, to the downside, I would call a resolution with any sort of a daily closure below 71 cents, very likely retargeting your February lows at 60-ish, let's call it. Higher term timeframes actually do favor the upside a little bit more, for what it's worth, and I actually would call this a macro low here with any sort of a weekly closure above 81 cents. Again, I know you're not asking about this, but I think that this is just a little bit more of an obvious analysis here. And now would have targets well above $1, somewhere around $1.15, maybe even $1.25 in the following weeks. But if you're specifically asked about the short term timeframes, I don't have as strong an opinion about this. If you were asking me specifically about the hourly, I'd say probably another grind down to like 75.5 cents. But that's not like a breakdown call. I'd only call a breakdown with an hourly closure below 75 and in 20. At that point, I do look for it to retrace that last impulse to the upside, somewhere down around about 73-ish, let's call it. I mean, these are very small margins right here, but this is an hourly after all. I would, by contrast, call an upside resolution with an hourly closure above 77.5 cents with targets back up towards 78.70 to 79 or so. I think the higher term time frames are actually a lot better for Ripple, funnily enough. Yeah, weird day, man. We see Zcash and Ripple as some of the more short-term better charts, actually. Still would like to see it above about 81 cents, and that would look really, 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 really good for some pretty major weekly continuation there. Not bad. Not bad, man. I was expecting something much worse, actually. Ian Gazzard says, AVAX, please, sir, 4 hour and daily. Okay. AVAX, Avalanche. What do we have here? Okay, I'm looking at higher term time frames just for my own knowledge, but let's go down here to a daily and a 4 hour. Short-term bouncy, can very easily extend the bounce towards 71 to 71 and a half. Very, very low volatility on a 4 hour. I'm going to guess upside momentum. Let's see what we got over here. I'm going to guess, but just looking at the chart, daily turns up above 77 and a quarter. Probably not happening today. 4 hour is turning up right now above 68. So yeah, short term probably does carry on with the bounce. I think anywhere around about 71 to 71 and a half is fair game. If things really get going here, let's say that you see Bitcoin above about 39.5, you probably see this one somewhere around about 73 and a half, or was that 73 and a half? Yeah, 73 and a half, yeah. If that were to happen. Until then, though, not the best right here, actually, on the daily. This was one of the better charts coming into the last few weeks, but I wouldn't say the same thing as of right now. By contrast, though, I know you didn't ask about the very high term timeframes, but I do feel compelled to talk about it just because I've been doing a lot of videos on this one. Any sort of a weekly closure below about about $60 in this case. Let's call it 59 to be exact, is where I start to call this one like a full-on mega breakdown. Until then, I do think that you're playing out a general macro range, kind of similar to Bitcoin, right? Above 44 good, in this case, above about $80 good, below about 60-ish or so bad, I would say. And that's where you're going to see your major corrections start to evolve from, probably down below $50. By contrast to the upside, probably looking at a return back up towards like 115 or so. But for right now, short-term timeframes, a little bit more bouncy. Daily, not really getting too much from this. It says bounces probably fail, but can be carried up into like the mid to low 70s if things get going over the next few days. Daily, I wouldn't be calling any reversals, especially as long as you're below about 87. Yeah, about $87 right here. That last lower high that you saw early March. Here's what we looked like actually on this chart. Down as long as below 73.40, so that's kind of a big deal. 5-day will turn up above 71, so yeah, short term a little bit of hopium right there, but does need to close Wednesday above that $71 region. Otherwise, I'd say the probabilities of this one breaking down get increased significantly, and again, can still bounce, but bounces are extremely likely to fail. But just starting off with the 4 hour time frame, a little bit more bouncy there, similar to Bitcoin. Ryan Howard says, hey man, can you check out Telos, Nimai next. Metis versus wrapped Ethereum. Okay, Metis. Okay, Metis token on Uniswap. I want to buy some more. Looking at the chart, how much lower would you expect to get, or does it look like the low is in? Actually, a surprisingly decent chart right here. I don't think the low is in. And look, the problem with you asking a question like that is you're talking about a 4 hour and a daily. Like if you're trading a 4 hour, I don't think that you'd really be caring about a daily, to be quite honest with you. So like, I don't know why you'd ask about that, to be quite honest with you. If you're looking at a daily, I do think that you probably have one more pullback here, somewhere around about 0.05 to 0.53-ish region. I think that's probably gonna be your next like major low, but yeah, not a bad chart here, to be fair. I just think that you do pull back from this region. So no, I don't think that the low is in. If you're on a 4 hour time frame, I think the short-term low is in, but that's, it doesn't sound like that's relevant to you. So short term, might have have another short term bounce back up towards yesterday's high, but ultimately I do look for this one to trade sideways and down on the daily, back down around that region that we just spoke about, and that's where I'd be expecting the next higher low if this one is gonna end up being bullish long term. And then a natural, a natural base right around about 0.04, anywhere below there, and well, if you like buying it right there, you're gonna love buying it somewhere down around about 0.18, 0.2. Yeah, I don't really have much to add on to it other than that, but yeah, short term, very likely a pullback there. Probably tries for a higher low somewhere around about 0.05 to 0.53 region in the next like week, if I had to guess. Cool. All right, let's see. I think we have Telos macro. Is there a macro for Telos? Let's see. Telos Tether or Telos Corporation. Are you talking about a real stock or this bullshit? Not really much of a macro here, to be fair, or at least on a weekly. Let's go to a daily. Pretty awful, pretty bad, man. I do think that this one does come down further towards 67 cents. In the coming weeks here. Short term, could you see a bounce back up to like 85, 86 cents? Possible, yes, but I do think that the highs are in on this one for a long time, and I actually do think that this one does retest around your January lows in the coming months. So if you're when you say macro, I'm guessing that you just mean long term essentially for an asset like this. Basically, I think that your highs are in for a long time. Short term bounces up to like mid to upper 80 cents are just very likely that. I generally look for this one to trade sideways and down back towards about 50 cents in the coming months, and probably another bounce there, but this is not like a strong chart. Probably another bounce there, but that bounce probably fails, to be honest with you. Any sort of a closure below 50 cents, and I look for this one to go for basically a full retrace. I mean, here's a real chart, right? This is kind of a ridiculous chart. And long term, I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing back down around like a quarter to 20 cents or so. Not very good. Anyways, let's see. Go to the bottom, says Elsa. One Sir Segzi says, can you look at Rune on the daily and 4 hours? Sure. It's always interesting. I wonder what the obsession is with like a 4 hour and a daily. I think people just ask that because like they think that those are just good ones. But fair enough, fair enough. Anyways, daily. I think that we got a nice low in here for now. Probably does continue for a little bit more. 4 hour, short term likely a little bit of a pullback, but I do think that pullback does get another try to the upside. So how far can we pull back here? Actually, no, I take that back. I do think that 4 hour does continue here, as does the daily. Probably somewhere around $8 to maybe $8.50, and I'll be looking for a short-term pullback right there. I think that this one's actually put in a nice low here for now. This one is doing something somewhat different than Bitcoin in the sense that it would have already gotten above basically last week's high, which is $42,500, kind of akin to Bitcoin. I look at this one as actually short-term a little bit more on the stronger side. You see good volume on that last breakout. I do think that this one's heading higher, actually, somewhere around $8 to $8.50 or so. Not bad. On the 4 hour time frame, I actually do think that it continues from there. Maybe a short-term pullback, but ultimately I do think that it's continued from here. And then you got a big weekly area at that 840-ish region. So while I would be looking for a pullback from there, after that pullback, if you see another higher low and then a closure above 840, I'd be extending targets like significantly actually into the 11 to $11.25 region in the following weeks. But yeah, one of the more interesting charts here, to be fair. I'd only invalidate that with a daily closure below about 570. Not bad. Rather interesting right there, in fact, if anything. And then BK is asking for the same thing as well, so all good. I think we got that. Nice. Mark Ty says, hello, Krown. Can you take a look at IMX 1 4 hour and daily? Okay. IMX, immutable ledger. Okay. Looks fucking bad, man. Looks real bad. This is Binance. Maybe KuCoin has more history. It's even worse. It's not getting better. CoinX, even worse. What the fuck, man? I actually do think you have a little bit of upside from here, to be fair. Terrible chart, though, long term, man. This thing's only ever gotten sold. So, if it does continue with the rally, I think best you really do is like $2.50 to maybe $3 and like a really big, massive move. But, hard chart to love. If I'm on a 4 hour, I do think short term it's bouncy. We do have hidden bullish evidence right here. Volatility is about to expand yet again, it looks like. So maybe another short term move up to like 180. What is this? 187 to 190ish region. I think it's possible. I don't invalidate that until this one's back below about 163. Hourly, same thing. I think that you're setting up for a little bit of a bounce here. Daily, long term, absolutely god awful. Here's your log chart. I do think that if you do get a breakout, which I would say is viable above on like a 4 hour closure about 194, I would actually be looking for a nice leg up. I do think that could bring you up to like 220 to 230-ish region. But again, I think that's kind of like best case scenario to the upside. Pretty awful chart long term. at least for the history that it has. I mean, just god awful right there. Like, what the fuck? It just goes down, man. It just goes down. So no reason to call a reversal until you get something different. For right now, we don't even see a higher low. So I want to see a higher low first before I even consider that you might be in the process of a macro reversal. I think best case scenario would be something like this, where you get that first move up, another lower high, come back down, and then you get a higher low, and then you take out that prior high. That'd be like the hopium upon hopium, but possible. Just that'll take a long time, obviously. For right now, short-term bouncing, long-term not great. Kaizen Ramen says, that is a cool name, man. Is that your real name? Kaizen Ramen? EGLD. Okay, this is Elrond, amazing, highly esteemed token, which also loves to go down on your mother. Sorry. Actually, again, basically same chart as Bitcoin right here, right? Probably does play at a bit of a short-term bounce, I'd imagine. Slightly higher low, as you can see, very low volatility, so not really making too much out of this right now. But what I'd like to see on this one, and what would actually really confirm this as a nice low, would be any sort of a daily closure above about 150. If I'm using a 4 hour, a little bit higher, I'd say about 158.5. If one of those two things happens, I actually am looking for this one to put in a nice rally, at least around about 175. And at that point, things actually do start to look a lot better in the higher term timeframes, which you'd ask for on a weekly. So I would actually consider this a macro low. I'd actually consider this a macro low here. Very simple chart on the weekly, actually, with any sort of a weekly closure back above, basically, what was this, February highs, which is on a closing base, which is about 193. At that point, I'm looking for big moves up, man. Big moves up into like the deep 200s, somewhere around 270 to 290-ish region. Until then, I do think short-term it's bouncy. Daily, I would invalidate short-term bounce and major downside continuation with any sort of a daily closure below 123 specifically, with big targets down towards $90, maybe even more. But for right now, I think you got to bounce first, as I do for most assets today. Bounce first. If you start to see lower highs below those major regions, then it's time to start to prepare for some mega downside. But right now, give it a chance to bounce first and then come back to it, maybe in a week. Hopefully that's helpful, man. Sean Waller says, would you consider doing a live Sims podcast for a Sims? I mean, we've done actually live Sim podcasts in the past, but we could do it. It's a little bit more like setup work, but not difficult to do. I can bring it up with Jason. We could do it, definitely. Ryan Howard says, can you check out T-Loss on the 4 hour and daily? Okay. Wait, I think we did this one for you. So I might be double posting here. Yeah, same thing, man. I remember this one. Not great. Short term, again, a little bit of a bounce short term, but definitely on the weaker side here. Tennessee Todd, 1 versus USD. Okay, so it's Harmony, and you're looking at daily, weekly. Gotcha. Again, short-term bouncy, that's a 4 hour. Same thing on the daily. Short-term bouncy could very easily come back up to 1280. Maybe even 14 cents or so, but problem is that you got lower highs the whole way through, and you kind of would be expecting a lower high at about 14 cents if this one is going to long-term continue to the downside. Weekly, you're in a bounce region. Again, I think that most of these things are set up for a bounce here first, regardless of whether you're bullish or bearish. The question is, on this bounce in the following weeks, does it get above about 17 cents? If it does, hey, you got a nice major low in there, very likely works its way up into the shallow 20s. If you don't, then it's just another lower high and probably getting ready for a big move down to just below 10 cents or so. But personally speaking, I do think that you bounce first and then just be aware of where those major resolution points are. So in this case, 17 cents on the weekly is the big area to be aware of. On the daily would be about 14 cents. I do think that you probably test somewhere around there, assuming the whole market does bounce. If you get a closure above 14 cents, I do look for this one to trade up to 15.5 cents or so. Other than that, not really strong on its own. Monthly is pretty wrecked, but pretty wrecked, pretty ugly, pretty fucking ugly, man. But hey, I'll keep the doors to hopium alive for a little bit longer. Not this one on its own, but mostly due to other things in this market. Problem is that if the rest of the market does bounce and has a nice move, this one probably just puts in a lower highs. That's kind of the issue that I'm seeing with it right now. It's just on the weaker side, but hey, above 17 cents, I'd be happy to call this one a major low. It can work off it from there. Until then, just be. I'm sorry, what would I consider a downside resolution? Did I ever go over this? What would I consider a downside resolution on this one? This one's already looking quite weak here. I suppose I'd say below about 11.5 cents. But even I mean, even then all trends are down. Short term probably bounces though. Okay, cool. Let's see. Jesus is back, says OGN USD. Is this the 2017 shitcoin that I remember that, yeah, it is. Holy shit. Oh no, that's 2020. So maybe Coin. No. Okay. Most history is on maybe CoinEx actually. No, probably Binance, I guess. All right. And you're looking at an hourly and a forex. So very short term. Okay, cool. Short term, okay, hourly I'm going to guess is probably going to be a bit of a short term pullback and consolidation, but I do think that you get continuation. Pullback short term, probably around about 36, maybe 35.5 or so. Well, yeah, I would be looking for a pullback here first, and then I would call a continuation from this region with any sort of a 4-hour or even an hourly, I'm guessing. Yeah, even an hourly closure above about 40 cents. I would actually call a continuation move up somewhere around about 43 to 44 region. Until then, short-term pullback first, and then I'd be I'd be looking for a higher low somewhere around about 35.5, let's say. If this one starts to come back down below about 33, I'd say this one is probably just going to fail here, put another lower high, and get ready for some more retest towards the prior lows. But for right now, I do think it has a short-term pullback. Tries for a higher low, any sort of an hourly closure above about 40 cents. I do extend that move another few cents, which kind of a big deal actually on a small number like that. Cool. Let's see. Okay, so we did Sean Waller right there. So we got that. We have Liz in Seattle. What's up, Liz? Have you had any requests for doing this for TV or any networks? No, I don't think that they'd be very fond of my language or calling candles dildos or anything like that. So that hasn't come up, and I wouldn't be interested in doing it anyways. I truly enjoy doing this. So for me, it's a pleasure, but I feel like if it was in a more corporate environment and there was like a boss kind of telling you what to do and there was like, things that you can't do as well, I feel like I have like a natural friction towards that. So I don't think I'd enjoy it. And I do appreciate those sentiments. But yeah, I'm more than happy to do it on my own. So until YouTube bans me, I have no plans to stop really. Okay. You're looking at Ethereum and Ethereum on the 4 and 12 hour. Gotcha. And thanks for the happy anniversary. Thank you for that. Cool. So here's the thing is that when I look across the market here and I see Ethereum makes me consider that the downside is a more likely resolution on the general formation here after a bit of a bounce. So I'm actually going to record this video. Here we have Ethereum versus the dollar. And just like Bitcoin, I do suspect that this one has another bounce off of this $2,500 level right there. Bounces can come up, very easily towards, like 26 to 2650 or so, but that doesn't really do all that much for this one. Just like Bitcoin below 42,500, anything is another lower high. The same thing for Ethereum below about 2760. So that's actually quite a big ways away from there. So, I do think that you have a bit more of a short-term bounce, but do keep in mind that this one's been putting in lower highs very consistently for a long time now on pretty much all time frames that matter. So I would not call any sort of a major, in this case, macro reversal as long as you're below about basically $3,000. Above 3,000, just this high right here, I do look for this one to put in some big moves up towards 34 to 3,500. Very likely a short-term pullback there. And honestly, I'd be looking for major continuation towards the 38 to 3,900-ish region in the following weeks. Problem is that right now, while it is short-term bouncy, I would call a downside resolution actually with any sort of a daily closure basically below about 2450, very likely retesting 2300 lows for another short-term bounce and probably lower than that over time, to be quite honest with you. And when I say lower than that, I mean, another wick down to like, not 20, but 1800 to 1900 or so. for the next bounce. But for right now, I generally think most things are kind of setting up for a bounce. If this one starts to get above those critical regions, I extend that bounce. But I'm not calling any like major lows here until this one's back above 3,000. Similar to Bitcoin above about $44,500 or 43 on a weekly. The same thing for this one would be about $3,000. At that point, I do call this one a confirmed major macro low and big targets up towards the deep 3,000s after that. Until then, I do think short-term bouncy, but to directly answer your question, you were looking at a 4-hour and a 12-hour. So let's go over here and actually do that. I mean, we're not really getting too much from this, to be quite honest with you. Maybe we could go look at stochastic momentum over here. Daily will turn up above 2750, so that's not happening today, or very unlikely. 12-hour turn up above 2600, also a little bit of a further away. Now, 4-hour does kind of align with my idea that this one bounces first. We do see a trend line coming in from the last few lows in early March. Will remain with upside momentum above about 2530, so that'd be a short-term invalidation for that. Personally speaking, I do think that it bounces up maybe somewhere around 2700. Again, that doesn't really do too much for it, but you do have a short-term range resolution above 2750, which at that point I would be looking for it to give a nice move up towards at least this regression here, which is about 2850. Obviously, that can bleed into the other higher term timeframes, and we get higher targets. But for right now, I think it's just best to kind of take it one step at a time and simplify here, simply because don't really want to get too ahead of ourselves, but. It's kind of a long way of saying below 20, below that number bad, above that number good. I do think it's more likely to bounce here first, however. So we'll see if the bounce gets above any one of those critical regions or not. Again, I think it's easier to watch Bitcoin. However, Bitcoin, as long as Bitcoin's below $40,000, all bounces are just lower highs. Above last week's high at about 42.5, that's where things start to actually change around and where I start to consider that, this really could be putting in like a major low here, and Bitcoin's gonna have major targets to the upside, as will Ethereum. So that would be close, 38 to 3,900 if that were to happen. Hopefully that was helpful. I feel like that was kind of long-winded, however, and not that helpful, unfortunately. But basically what it boils down to, in my opinion, is that just Bitcoin's easier to watch in this case, and be very, very aware of the, let's call it 2450-ish region on Ethereum. Until then, short-term bouncy. Personally speaking, I do think that this one probably does put in a bounce somewhere around about 2850, but again, that's just another lower high. Anything below 3,000 is kind of a failure. Looking for like an obvious signal here. I'm not really getting it. What? Else is closing the chats. Pin my message. All right, I'll pin your message. Let's see. Where'd that be? Shout out from Australia. What's up, Pete? Please, Krown, don't do the stream later. It's all right, man. I think it's pretty settled that the majority has spoken, and the majority says keep the streams the same time. Okay, cool. Ashton Roberts says, hi, hello. QNT, USD, 4-hour and daily. Okay. Whoops, wrong thingy. QNT, this Quant. Yeah, we haven't looked at this one in months as well. All of these charts on the lower term timeframes look about the same. So it's like if you say something about one of them, you kind of say the same thing about all of them. 4-hour and daily. Again, short term, I do think you got a bit more of a short term bounce here, probably somewhere around 115 or so on the 4-hour. You do have hidden bullish divergence. You do see very, very low volatility, looking for expansion. Does that do anything for the higher term timeframes? No, not really. So where the higher term timeframes actually start to change around above about let's just call it 130, make it a nice round even number. At that point, I do look for this one to put in a rally towards 150 to 155. Problem is long term. I mean, hold on. I know this one definitely has more of a chart than this, right? Maybe Gemini. No. Maybe KuCoin. Yeah, here we go. KuCoin. Above about 140 or so. I actually would call this a macro low with big targets up towards the shallow 200s. As are most things, right? Most things do have that. I do think it's important to keep the hopium alive for that, because we still haven't broken down just yet. But any sort of a daily closure below $100, and this one very likely retests around your January lows, which is 84. Probably tries for another bounce there, but very likely much lower over time. Somewhere down around about mid to low 70s. But for right now, short term a little bit bouncy. Let's see if it gets above any one of those critical regions. If it does, it can start to extend targets quite a fair bit. It's kind of cruising around different time frames. Yeah, I would say 140 is the big area to be aware of. As long as you're below there, it is pressure to the downside. Maybe we could just briefly look at it from here. Just curious, like where do these line up? I'm gonna guess probably the 140 region. No, daily turns up above 120. What about weekly? Too new to really give a look, as is the 5-day, but 104. Say if this one does remain above 104 by Wednesday, similar to Bitcoin, above 38.3 on Wednesday, I do think that the Bulaw's hopium starts to become a lot more probabilistically likely that we will see this actually confirm as a major low, just based off the 5-day volatility and momentum signal. I think that is actually that's essentially what I'm looking for to kind of really get a major bias on long-term direction here. Or a range resolution, which again is below 37 or above 44.5. But that signal probably happens before a range resolution, so that's why I'm putting so much weight on it. Jack Asman says, good morning. Hey, what's up, man? And happy anniversary. Happy anniversary to you as well, sir. Could you please share your BBWP chart one more time? I've not saved it. All right, here you go. Let's see. You mean like BBWP settings? Yeah, I'm guessing is what you mean. Running an SMA, 13, 252 look back, and a 5 simple as the moving average, sir. Everything else is irrelevant for the settings, really. But yeah, there you go. And also close as well. Obviously, that's going to be rather important, but there you go. Yeah, man. No problem. Jesus says, Miss the Rhino, it's been a while. PGLD sushi swap. Actually, I don't have it linked up to my stream right now because my voice has been hurting so much recently because I've been very loud and vocal recently with Elden Ring, so my voice has been crushed since then, so been a little more subdued. But yeah, BGLD, I'm guessing you're looking at this right here. What actually is this? I'm just curious. It's a gold, okay, all right. Just like gold spot, I am bullish on this long term, but short term, do I expect a little bit more of a pullback here? Maybe one more try somewhere around about $20, but yeah, I do think that it pulls back again somewhere around about 19.5. Long term, I think this is like a major low and very likely sideways and up. Gold, I imagine is going to trade very similar to that. Yeah. So short term, maybe like very, very short term, maybe one more try to the upside just above 2000. But I do think ultimately it does come back down somewhere around low 1900s. Let's call it like 1920 or so. And at that point, I'd be expecting a higher low. And then if this one is going to end up being ultimately bullish, well, I'd be expecting upside from there. But yeah, basically a long way of saying, sideways and down from here. But I do want to see a higher low somewhere around about 1915 to 1920. And that would be good. That would be bullish. Yep, there's Bitcoin goes. Okay, short-term rally playing out. Nice. And then we got just Nimbo left. Okay, got it. Daily on Bitcoin Ruble. You fucking bastard. Oh, Nimbo, come on. You don't actually care about this. Bitcoin versus the Ruble over here. They actually trade on Binance? Interesting. I wouldn't have known that. Wow. Pretty fucking bullish, man. Pretty fucking bullish. You don't need me to tell you that this is bullish, but yeah. I'm curious if there's like a more longer running chart. Yeah, this would be it. This goes all the way back to 2015 actually on Currency.com. This is actually a different chart too than the Binance chart, which is very bizarre. This is actually looking like a failed breakout for right now. Probably does come back down to like, what the fuck is that number? Is that 4,110,000 rubles? Do you think that you try for a higher low there? If I'm looking at Binance, this one's like obviously bullish and very likely gunning for new highs, maybe later this month, or early early next quarter. But yeah, man. All right, hey, there Bitcoin goes. Nice short-term rally plays out. Okay, beautiful. But where now? Does it do anything of particular interest here? Anyways, I think that's it for today. 1 hour and 30 minutes into this bitch, and we're just finishing up. So looks like the short-term move played out yet again, which is good. I should not say it like that because that sounds like I'm tooting my own horn. But what I should say is, look, man, it's just game of support and resistance right now. Very, very simplistic stuff, but a lot of the time that's just what trading is. So I think good reminder that it doesn't need to be flashy, doesn't need to be anything too crazy. same old, basically, that we've been looking at. I do want to say massive appreciation for everyone tuning on in, though. Massive appreciation for everyone being a part of the 4-year anniversary as well. We'll be back on tomorrow with a straight video analysis, and then on Wednesday another live stream. And I guess we'll keep it at the same time. So all good right there. It's been a nice fun day as well. Just even with the kind of lack of activity, some good conversations going on, and just some good, actually some decent trading, although it is boring, which is kind of where we want to be anyway. So at least that's where I want to be. I want to be bored while trading. Don't want to be excited. Anyway, thank you to our lovely moderation crew, Bear Nutrition. There he is, African Crypto Warlord, Nikki Page, Elsa, Rocky G, and Philson all in the house today. Wishing everyone well, as always. Take care, and see you hopefully soon.
Write it, code it, name it, tweet it, mine it, stack it, live it, dream it, post it, scan it, charge it, send it, do it, and receive it. Trade it, buy it, sell it, store it, run it, list it, first rename it. Crypto logic. Pump it, hack it, lose it, dump it, sell it, ditch it, XR pitch it, copy, paste it, nudge it, test it, build it, try it, bend it, fork it, hype it, pump it, dump it, rinse, repeat, but quick relocate. Pause it, list it, send it,